Welcome to Beyond the Firewall, the business bitecast, where tech and business collide. Get expert insights, real-world strategies, and the latest trends in bite-sized episodes. Stay ahead, stay secure, and explore what's beyond the firewall. And welcome back to Beyond the Firewall, where we talk about more than just tech. We talk about business and your future. So today we actually have a really cool experience and a individual that we've got. His name is Christopher. How do you pronounce your last name again?
Thacker.
Thacker. Okay. Founder and visionary of Crew Vision, a map-based operating system built for field services. And he runs now a maintenance property care management system with over 150 people. Basically one of the largest in Toronto. Chris blends hand-on operations with experience in modern tech, bringing into that conventional hands-on business, which we all know as maintenance throughout the city. So Chris, thank you for being on our show today. Super excited getting you here. Tell the audience here today a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I guess I caught the entrepreneurial illness very early on in my life. I've never had a job. I've never had a T4 or any any actual employment income. So I started shoveling walkways when I was 12 years old, just going door to door in my neighborhood. And basically, I took that business from doing that at 12 to hiring staff. And as of this year, 20 years later, I'm still running it. And we'll probably have somewhere between 150 and 180 people out on the larger snowfalls this year. And so basically I built a landscape maintenance, snow removal business. And now I'm also building a related tech business that helps landscape and snow removal companies put their crews out in the field and explain the work they have to do.
That's incredible. And I appreciate that because I've only had a few jobs in my life. I kind of did the same thing. I started off in high school, and I think my first job really was working at a pet store, and only because I really wanted to work with the animals. And then when I got to college, I had a little bit of a side hustle. I would call a part-time job at the restaurants, working as a waiter kind of thing. But yeah, most of my life as well has been the entrepreneurial bug, going door to door, knocking on people's houses and washing windows, and paid for my college, paid for my high school, and I did like any odd job that the average person needed around, and whatever was sort of hot. Remember student painters? I don't know if you're even part of that era, but when I was a kid, there was a thing like student painters, and everybody was knocking around doors, and because there was no vinyl windows back then, so
No.
it's now everything's vinyl windows. Before, you actually had wood windows, and you actually had to paint them over and over again. So it's like by the time you got to the end of the neighborhood, you could start right back up because
Go right to the beginning.
yeah, it was like, at the end of the day, that was like almost a rinse and repeat business for most people, because you knew every 3 to 4 years that paint came right off the windows. So
I'm sure that
no,
must be a
that's
real
amazing.
gift for you, though. You probably learned a lot. You just learned so much running these actual businesses. It's like, I think sometimes people start in business and they start on such a big business. Kind of in life, you got to like work yourself up.
Yes. Yeah. It teaches you a lot of life skills about humility, compromise, dealing with customers, and you had customers that really appreciate what you do. And, you knock on a door and you're like, hey, do you want your windows washed? Do you want your landscaping, your driveway plowed? And people were always grateful for it, but there was always that customer that was never really happy with whatever you did for them. And
Mm-hmm.
you try to compromise and you try to meet customers' expectations, but it changes your perspective on how to deal with people, right?
Yeah.
You can't hide behind the job that's right on your driveway or on your
You
windows.
don't have a boss. You're the buck stops with you.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's really cool. And it's amazing to hear that you've scaled this up, literally, kid on a with a shovel on his shoulder. I'm sure we've all seen the few kids in the neighborhoods these days, like less and less than from what I know.
Mm-hmm.
There's barely one kid that shows up to my house on a winter to get a
Consistently, at least.
yeah. And At the end of the day, now it's like you've taken it from grassroots, startup to this, enterprise type of situation here. Why don't you talk a little bit about some of the challenges or sort of stepping stones that you've gone through that maybe could be really beneficial for somebody who's aspiring to be an entrepreneur these days?
Well, like two things come to mind. Like first, I think everything seems hard and impossible till all of a sudden you're doing it. Like I remember when I first got going, like the thought of reaching like $100,000 in revenue was like mind blowing. I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna get there. And then all of a sudden you get there and you're like, I want to do 500,000. And then you're like, That's so far away. How do you get there?" And then you get to 500,000 and you're like, oh man, can you imagine if we hit $1 million? Like what would that look like? And so everything seems really hard, and then all of a sudden you're there. And usually you have this, you're generating sales ahead of operations, at least early on in a business. So you're out there trying to do anything to basically get that revenue, and then you're like, we're somehow going to deliver this revenue. And then kind of I find as the business grows, you end up doing less and less, because what got you up to like a million, 2 million, couple $1 million a year isn't what's going to get you to that, 10, 15, $20 million level. I think there's
Right.
that quote. It's like you get to $1 million saying yes, you get to 10 million saying no. And so I've seen that to be true. But secondly, I think the thing that's really helped me all along, I got really lucky. I dropped out of university after my first year, and I ended up joining a mastermind group with a bunch of other landscape business owners across the US. I was the only Canadian in the group. I was also like the youngest guy by like 8 years in this group, which was just wild. But when I joined there, my company was doing like $150,000 a year in sales, and um, about 8 years later, after being in that group, we were at 5 million. And unfortunately, that group wrapped up. But it was being in that group and being around everybody trying to was hard charging, trying to get somewhere, and we just it's we had workshops and monthly calls and all that, but it was the stuff that we'd hear. We'd go on trips like 3 or 4 times a year, and the talk around the hotel bar, or you're going around Vegas, and you're hearing what's working well in Tennessee or down in Arizona, and you're like, okay, well, I can bring that back to my business. And so partly that, and also just seeing is believing. You're like, that guy's not that smart. If he can do it, I could do it. Like
Love that.
and so that's actually how we ended up meeting, because when that wrapped up, I ended up joining EO. So I'm like, you always need to be in some kind of like peer to peer group where you're hanging
Sure.
around other business owners and kind of like cross pollinating.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're a college dropout,
Technically,
officially.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, you're a college dropout. You didn't finish your college degree, so that's really cool. And on top of that, I'm guessing there was no silver spoon. Like nobody wrote you a check for like $1 million to get this company off the ground.
no, but I have to obviously give credit to like my parents, and also even like my grandma. When I was getting going in the early years, after I did my first winter like shoveling walkways, my dad lent me like $400 to get my first lawnmower. I paid him back in a couple of weeks. My mother lent me like 5 grand for my first truck. Same story, paid her back. So definitely like not a silver spoon, but definitely very supportive. And before I could even drive, I had like my parents and my grandma would drop me off in neighborhoods. I used to fold like a lawnmower down and put it in the back of a Sebring. So yeah, I definitely had that support
So you
system
had a
there.
good support mechanism, you had a good supportive family, and at the end of the day, but it was still your tenacity and your grit that kind of moved this company forward.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just kind of vision, and also just being around other business owners. And I for sure wouldn't have gone into where we're at without being in those kind of groups and talking to people.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with you. And I've been a member of Mastermind and several other peer groups over the decades. And I found that it was transformative of who I was as an individual, and at the same time really catapulted my business because I didn't have to learn from my own mistakes. I'm sitting there going, okay, well, how do I hire my next person? I've never done this hire before. And I would be able to collaborate with several individuals that completed the same process maybe a year ago. And they were like, oh, yeah, this is how you do it. This is what I did. Here are some pitfalls that, you don't want to go through. So here's a couple little nuggets that you can avoid, some serious pain. And it changed me because prior to me meeting individuals in these peer groups, I had to go through it, take money, throw it at it, see if it worked. Failed. Okay,
Hmm.
well, clean up, save up some more money and do it again. The investment on a lot of these peer groups are not cheap, but at the end of the day, when you look at your total return on investment, I call it really super cheap because the time and effort and the savings, you're able to move ahead much quicker without having
I
to go through all the lessons learned.
I think that's the most important part, actually. Like, so when I first joined that peer group, I was doing like 150 grand a year in revenue. This was like $1,000 a month group, which when
Yeah,
you're doing 150,000 in revenue, that's 12 grand a year. That's a good chunk of your revenue. And I remember,
100%.
I think it was in US dollars, so it was a lot more. Um, and so, uh, but the nice thing is that it's a bit of a qualifier. Like I've
For
also
sure.
done free stuff, and when you do free stuff, people don't value it the same. People don't show up, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
think so. I know people that are in $100,000 a year peer groups and stuff, and it's just stuff that helps get you into that circle, helps get you on the stage and around the right people.
Yeah, it's the pay to play concept, right? You gotta
You got to
show
pay to
up.
play sometimes.
You do. You definitely do. So talk to me about like, the evolution. So you started this, maintenance company providing services. You've evolved. Obviously, you're not doing the neighborhood law, driveway and stuff like that. Where are you at today? What's changed in Toronto? What's sort of the main focus of your business today, and how has that evolved?
We still have a residential side of the business, but the majority of our business now is working with condominiums, working with shopping centers, working. We do a fair amount of City of Toronto work. Our business model on the landscape snow removal side of things is to be as dense as possible. So if your users, or sorry, if your listeners know Toronto, we basically service south of the 401 between Vic Park and roughly Keel Street. And so we want as many properties as possible in that region. And then our strategy is to then put the best and most efficient equipment on those properties. And so, one of the things that sets some of our snow removal programs apart from others is that because we have such a high density of properties, we run loaders instead of like plow trucks, and that means that we're able to place snow exactly where it needs to be on a property. And so we really can bring that urban approach and be able to offer the right solution to the customer versus say a company that's servicing a bit of Toronto, but also servicing suburbia. They have just a general tool set. It's about being able to be specialized and being able to deliver the right experience to our customers.
Very cool. So you've identified your target market, your niche, and be able to focus on that. So you're laser focused on it as much as anybody can plow a driveway or service the maintenance vision. You're just really getting down to that narrow focus so that you're more efficient, more cost effective, and providing that key essential service at the highest quality.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like I'm proud of our snow fighting efforts. It's you know, in the industry we like to call ourselves snow fighters, but quite honestly, we're the first responders of first responders. In
Yeah,
Toronto, we service about 30 EMS stations. If like the crews can't get out there and clear it, and we've had like record snowfalls that come in, and we're like, ambulances can get stuck. Like these things aren't designed to go through 40 or 50 centimeters of snow, and so yeah, quite
wow.
literally, we're out there making sure that everything keeps moving.
Well, you were right about the predictions for this Thursday, Friday, where we were talking about the other day saying, are we going to get hammered? And actually, it was really cool because if you saw the weather map, it actually just missed Toronto. Like everybody east and west and north got
Yeah.
hammered. And somehow, Toronto, there was like a magic bubble. We didn't get hammered with this
I think
50
the streamers, they
centimeters.
don't mix well with all the high office towers and stuff, so they kind of go around.
Maybe we got to put some more further north so that it deflects around Vaughan too. But that's pretty awesome. So, it's really cool hearing about that. And obviously you talked about, the legacy of what this industry is, which is brick and mortar, right? And
Mhm.
we all know this is a brick and mortar business, but I know a little bit about something about what you guys do, but how is technology in general been impacted by your business? Like, are you using Google Maps? Are you GPSing things? Like, how have you gotten that technology today? And obviously, this is a tech talk a little bit.
Yeah.
How are you? How are you using technology today to be more efficient for whatever you're willing to share to the public today? Obviously,
Yeah.
don't want to give all the secret sauce away.
You know what? It's all about execution, right? I
Yeah,
could detail the whole master plan, but someone still has to go out and execute it, and other companies are dealing with the legacy of their existing systems, right? So
sure.
I'm not too worried, but yeah, it kind of leads into, I guess, what I've been working on, spending most of my time on, and that's optimizing our operational technology. And so, um, kind of one of the big issues, I think, in a lot of industries, in a lot of industries, but also including kind of landscape snow removal, you dispatch a crew out to a property, everything is just ticket based. It's like, hey, there's a problem, there's something here. It's all text. It's go out here. Here's an address. Go and service it. And it's funny. A lot of these systems are so focused on getting the crew to the property efficiently that they forget that when the crew gets there or when the technicians get there, they then have to figure out what to do. And one of the biggest issues in our industry is it's very hard work. You kind of have a bit of a rotating labor pool. You don't always have the same people. And how can you ensure that you can put any crew on any site at any time without them missing anything? And that's
Mhm.
really hard with the traditional systems. And so that's the technology I've been working on. Basically, we build interactive site maps. And so instead of a crew just getting a ticket, like, hey, go clear the snow at this address, and hey, if you go searching through all the files on this account, you might find a sitemap. We're sitemap first. We're like, go here. When you get there, you start the job. They see all the service areas they have to do. They mark the areas complete. And so that that's been the technology that we've been building because it's necessary. It's been necessary in my other business because we have such a high density. Most of our sites are kind of next to each other, and our crews, there's 11 different languages spoken in my company. It's like, how can we get everybody speaking the same language? And so we got them now speaking the language of maps. And it's necessary because we all know that there's not a lot of new money out there for our services. Every year, it's like, yes, we'd like to go and charge more money, but let's admit it. And I'm pretty sure this is for most people listening in most industries. You're kind of lucky if you can get inflation on your service contracts.
Correct.
Customers are always trying to save a dime, and you can't blame them. And so, how do you make more money when customers are doing that? You have to figure out how to become more efficient. And so, for us, that's been like, how do we eliminate callbacks and issues? How can we eliminate that? If there's a large snowstorm, you know, maybe say for a regular snowstorm, you need 150 people, but a small snowstorm, maybe you only need 100. And so a lot of the existing technology in the past didn't allow you to scale things up and down easily. And so that's been the technology that we're building.
And that's pretty cool because I would say that, I'm in the service business being in help desk and tech support. One of the challenges we have is when our techs are going on site and then we have the same challenge. Like we've got, a dozen technicians that will do field service where,
Yeah.
our majority of our work is done remotely. But when the techs are going on site, like not every tech has been on that site before. And be honest with you, it's very challenging to get even if you documented everything correctly, you know, even having a photo of the rack or the networking infrastructure and then the layout of the building, like
Yeah.
no software out there that we work with today, and we work with one of the largest, ERP service platforms out there. They don't even give you these options to sort of upload a building plan and a floor plan and be able to map out all of the locations of all the networking devices and where the Wi-Fi access points are. So when the technician's showing up, it's like, here's the floor plan, here's where everything would be. You've just sparked an interesting idea for me because I'm sitting there going, love to see if there's a way for us to do that because I can see where the challenges are, right? You've got a building, you've got property, identifying what avenues and maybe the back alleys on which way, where the, cleaning or maintenance needs to be done in various corridors and which side of the fence is their property and not their property anymore. So you don't want to be doing the
Exactly.
neighbors.
Nothing's that clear, and
Nope.
everything is just so dense. And even like, where can you park? Like, we service
Yes.
a lot of stuff downtown. It's like, well, where can you, if you got to park your truck, where can you park it? And so I think in the past it was just so easy, or maybe not so easy. That's a little flippant, but it was easier. You'd have the same employees, and
Yes.
it wasn't as busy downtown, and they would just figure it out. And that just figure it out is inefficient and it doesn't work anymore. And so you have
Yeah.
to really have a solid plan. And, I'm sure even in your business, like going on site, yes, it's a bit of a pain in the ass, but it's probably some of the more valuable things for your business. That's what your customers actually, that's when they actually are interacting with someone from your company, when
Correct.
you're actually out there. And so you want to still deliver a good experience. So
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I fully agree with you on the fact that, if we're lucky, we're able to do an increase based on inflation, where staff obviously are expecting higher pay, and at the same time customers have options out there, right? There's always somebody
there's
willing to
someone who
do
will
the
do it
job.
cheaper. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, I know. And then the question is, how long are they going to last? Are they even going to be in business in 3 years or 24
There's
months from
only so
now?
much you could sell value though. Like I hate to say that. Like we have to be honest. Like a lot of us are in a somewhat commodified business. Yes, there's
Mhm.
some exceptions, but you know, like yes, doing good work, doing all that matters, but you also have to be competitive. If all of a sudden you're wildly 40, 50% out of line, all of a sudden this happens to us all the time on snow removal contracts. Let's just call it. Sometimes you're being a little piggy and you're making good money, and then all of a sudden that person changes that company and they come in and they're like, yeah, I know someone else who could do this and we could save 40%. And so
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, we deal with it all the time. We're very commoditized. Like, you can buy Microsoft or Google direct. You don't even need to buy through us. And at the end of the day, I know partners out there that uplift even above and beyond retail. Like, so if Microsoft's charging 20, they'll charge 25 and call it a management fee. And then I got guys that are looking for better than retail prices on the
Yeah,
subscription. And we're not highly marginized in the sense that we don't have double digit margins on a lot of the subscriptions, but there are individuals out there that just want to capture the market share any way possible. So it's an interesting game, and you have to figure out your differentiators. And that's always been our biggest thing is, we sell on service, we sell on our professional advisory services in that regard. So the quality of our team, as well as the advice that we do, is our value proposition above and beyond getting your subscriptions from us, because that you can buy anywhere.
you can
So
be
no
15
good.
to 20% more for sure and be like, yeah, but like it's hard to win a lot of volume at like 40 to 50% more. And I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes there's like the false positives where people are like, yes, I can do this, but they're running a small business. Like if you want to get scale, like most people I think do in their business, you
Yeah.
have to you have to find that right mix.
Well, when you talk about that and you start underselling, what ends up happening is, and a lot of people don't realize it. So remember the stats, like 90% of most businesses fail within the first 5 years. Why?
Hmm.
Sure, the first 50,000, the first, your friends, family, whatever it is, it's easy to capture that initial revenue. What ends up happening is that now the minute you start hiring people, the minute you start having expenses, you've got commitments now that are a burn rate, and all of a sudden you're stuck taking home a paycheck. You don't even have, you're basically a glorified employee within your own prison.
Yeah,
So, I've seen time and time again, and we've bought out, I think right now, close to 8 different MSPs and IT providers across Canada and in North America. We bought several of them now, and most of the acquisitions, we're not talking here. People were they were literally happy to get out because they were stuck in the raw in basically a job
they
that they
own a
hadn't
job.
seen. They owned a job. They hadn't seen a vacation day in 7 years, because if they went to Mexico for 2 weeks and then something happened to a client of theirs, the client would leave, and that was too detrimental to their income. And, just getting out was already a stress relief, and they were able to get a job making the same money or more than trying to run their own business. So it's part of the factor why most of these companies go away within 5 years, because they just don't understand the scale and what it truly costs to operate a business.
Yeah, you have to understand your costs for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's sacrifice and there's risk, and there's a lot of those things that will help you catapult your business. But and the long hours are there no matter what. But yeah, I feel you on that one. It's the biggest biggest peeve I have with a lot of my competitors, especially the smaller ones when they come around, or even some of the larger ones that just liquidate it to buy the market share. And next thing you know,
Look at
they're
that.
struggling.
Every industry, man. Every
Yeah.
industry complains about people lowballing.
Yeah.
Mine's not no different.
Yeah. So talk to me about, what's in the future. So like I know like AI right now is a big thing in my space. Everybody's talking AI,
Yeah.
cybersecurity, are any of these things sort of percolating in the construction maintenance industry as you would put yourself in, and you see AI, you know, agentic snowplow machines, or you're seeing robotics, or you seeing AI being a big part of your business over the next 24 months? And if you do, where do you see the low hanging fruit there?
I think there's lots of low hanging fruit and there's lots of exciting opportunities with this. I think overall, right now in this AI, we're kind of still in the Microsoft DOS era of it. It's like all these command line prompts, like do this, do this, do this. And
Yes.
I think you're starting to see software where it's now becoming more and more integrated versus like these command lines. And so I'm quite excited to see where that goes. Obviously, the landscape snow removal industry, like there's still guys using paper route sheets. Like it's a slow moving industry and people won't move until they're forced to. And I think that AI is going to definitely improve things, but we'll have to see how it gets adopted. One of the interesting things that we're working on AI wise at Crew Vision though is how can we price things? How can we price our properties using AI? How can we take all the pricing, because we have such a tight link
Mm,
between pricing and measurement of areas, how can we combine that and create not only like a pricing model for a specific company, but say like a pricing model for an area where we know almost like a Kelly Blue Book value where it's like, hey, this parking lot should be about, $8,000 to $11,000. And so those are the type of things where I think everybody's going to want that. Everybody's going to want to be able to price using your existing matrix. We're even looking at like how can we use our job costing. We're getting all this data back now in a more rich format where we know we didn't just spend 10 hours at a property. We spent those 10 hours doing all this in these areas. And so the more that we get accurate with the information we can put in, the better the information that we're going to get out and the more fun stuff. But I think that's an issue across the board, across all industries. There's a lot of information systems that aren't ready for AI. They've kind of just lazily built like some chatbot into it. And the reason they have to do that is because the structure of the data is terrible. It's not ready to go into an AI model. And so I guess that's the exciting thing for us. I'm only 3 years in and we've been kind of building with this in mind. So I think there's lots of exciting things.
yeah, that's awesome. And kudos to you to being ahead of that, because I fully agree with you. Like a lot of legacy, there's a from what I remember in the industry, when it comes to, service industry like yours, a lot of legacy people in there, people that are going to be boomers, right? They're going to be in the 60 plus. They're not going to want to do change now. They're pretty comfortable with where they're at. And at this point in time, they're not, I don't see them wanting to make that capital investment, which is unfortunate, because at the end of the day, it's not a significant uplift to make that capital investment. But I think that their intentions, and I've already spoken to a few clients of ours that, we're talking boomers that are still running their manufacturing facilities and other businesses today, and they're like, I'll just leave it for the next gen when they take it over in the next year to 5 years, and
Yeah.
I'll hand that off as part of, when they buy the company, they're just going to have to integrate it with one of their own systems. But you're so spot on in the sense that it is garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have the right data sets, AI is not going to be able to improve efficiency there. I find that there's still a lot of individuals out there using free slash freemium AI platforms, which are unsecure. They're not confidential. I bet you if you went into a ChatGPT platform or any of the other ones, Comet or whatnot, and you actually start asking it if it has any information about your competitors in the GTA or in Ontario, I bet you there's been uploads of data that have been submitted by your competitors unknowingly that they're now part of the grand
And
data
speaking of
set.
boomers, this is the problem. They're just like, oh, let's just upload our whole customer list into here. It's okay.
Yeah, no, it's not. And
You know,
I
you
deal with
got,
this all day long.
yeah. Well, that's your endpoint management. That's, your biggest risk in IT is some guy on the edges accessing your system doesn't know how to properly handle it. And, that's, you're 100% right. They just start uploading stuff places, and let's face it, I don't need, it sounds like I'm going to start selling for you here, but, I think the biggest, like one of the biggest targets of some of the cybercrime or uh, ransomware, all this stuff, isn't necessarily the large companies anymore because they got
No,
this stuff figured out. They're going after, some guy running a $1 to $3 million company, some guy that they can, his password's ABC123, and they can easily, walk away with a good payday. It's not hard.
exactly. And ironically, we just took on a recent small construction company. And when I say small, the back office is small. The field workers, just like yours, I think they had also 50 plus people in the field, but their back office was like six. And they had the same username and password for all several employees under multiple platforms because they thought, well, why would I need several subscriptions? So they had one subscription for this and,
Uh,
posted notes on various subscriptions. And I'm like, yeah, where's the two-factor authentication? Where are the unique user logins? And so we did a bit of an overhaul cleanup. At the end of the day, the cost to switch things back to what it should be as best practices was almost $0 uplift by the time we were done cleaning it all up. So
yeah.
it is a perception always with IT that it's a cost center, but the reality is it costs way more not to in the long run once you do get compromised or data loss.
Well, and think it depends on the industry too. Like my accountant 3 years ago, 4 years ago, got hacked. I'm like, what? What do you mean you guys got hacked? Like, they're like, yeah, someone got all your financial statements, and
Oh
I'm like, what?
shit.
I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Can
How
you
does this
imagine the
happen?
reputation? What's the
They're no
reputation damage
longer,
now?
well, they're no longer our accountants. I can tell you that.
I was just gonna say that the
Yeah.
reputation damage is massive.
Well, they're a bunch of, I guess I'm mean here, but a bunch of boomers, and like how accountants are. Like I'd been to their office a couple times. They had like one of those slidey things with the filing cabinets, and
Yeah,
then they
yeah.
also had their own server. I'm like, it's almost negligence. You guys are hosting your own server like in your office. Like this is retard. Guys say retard. I'm gonna say retard. It's retarded.
It's
Yeah,
retarded. Yeah, we're
yeah.
we're gonna use the word retarded. It's okay.
I like it. Okay.
We're not going PG here. So yeah, no, I agree with you. And so it's when we look at it, you've got companies like yours which are conventionally blue collar, everything from entry level workers all the way up, and here you are investing time and effort in innovation and modernizing and being efficient. The capital investment there is not small, but at the end of the day, the rewards are kicking in.
And let's just say, I think everybody in 10 years from now, I think you already are. If you're not, it's going to be a big problem. You basically are, you have to become a bit of a tech business. Like every business has some element of it in there where you're like adopting technology. This is not like an optional thing. It's becoming more and more a part of it. So,
Oh yeah.
and your competitive advantage, like how you stack your technologies together and how you do things is, you know, it's not like 10 years ago where it was optional.
Yep. 100%. And it's just going to be more and more complex right now, and you've got to stay on top of it at some point. I think that when you look at it, doesn't matter what business you're in, it literally can start going up and down from a bakery. Like I literally was in London last week, and my son and I were looking at going for lunch, and just literally clicked on Google Maps, clicked on, find me a restaurant, and it found this like hot table Serbian restaurant in the neighborhood. And I'm like, okay, it is not a fast food joint. Let's go check it out. And it was a gem. I would have never found it It was in an industrial plaza. And let me tell you right now, if you're ever in London, I got this amazing Serbian chivape. Like the thing was like this big. It was amazing.
Is it on your
Better than
list? I
just
think you shared your Google list with me once. For anybody that doesn't know, Aries has quite the Google saved locations stack.
yes. Yes. It is a hobby of mine to find hidden gems all over the city of Toronto. My little side hobby with my food
It's
review
amazing you're
program.
fading away. You love it. You
Yes.
love it so much.
Yes, I had to because I was getting to be a little too big at one point. So yeah, I've got to fade away a little bit, but I'm still a big guy. So still eating my good portions just to cut out the sugars and all the extra carbs. So you get to a point in life where you realize, okay, I gotta do something about it. So talk to me. We're at the end of the year.
Hmm.
We're approaching December next week. Any plans for end of the year strategic? What's in the horizon that you're thinking it's going to happen over the next few months in 2026? Anything you want to share?
Yeah. We're just ramping up. We're mostly a snow removal company, so I know everybody's kind of like December's a write-off month, but we're pretty busy. So we run EOS at Mr. Know-It-All, and so we have like our quarterly meeting on Monday. So we'll be talking a lot about some of the changes that we're going to try and implement over the winter time before summer hits. Actually, kind of interesting. We're splitting the business. So we're going from we still have a small, like maybe 20% of our revenues residential, and we have a commercial side, so we're actually splitting it. So we're gonna have Mr. Modal be the residential brand, and we're actually coming out with a new commercial brand that better speaks to the fact that we do snow removal, because it's kind of confusing. You gotta call Mr. Modal to get, your condominium parking lot cleared. So
Yeah.
we're trying to make something that speaks a little bit better to that. And then on the Crew Vision side of things, it's been full guns a blazing. We just launched, like we've been using it in my company for almost 2 years now, but just in the last 2 months we've launched. We already have 6 companies using it across the US. And so we want to keep pushing that. Obviously, I'm investing a lot of money into that. So I would like to start getting some revenue to go against it, but it's also just cool to share it. And I've always been kind of envious in business, like where people have like a very strong purpose. And I figured eventually it would just hit me. And I feel a really strong sense of purpose in Crew Vision because we're helping our field teams actually get their job done. And that's making their lives easier. And I know at the end of the day that it's going to allow us to pay people more money and it's going to lift the standards of the industry. And so I'm just really excited about it, and I can't wait to keep pushing it out next year.
So tell us more about this platform, Crew Vision.
Yeah,
Like you're selling it now. You've got a handful of clients. This is a new project, new pilot.
yeah,
What does it do? What is it all about? Like, tell the audience out there. This is going to be your big pitch here. Let's go global on
yeah.
this.
Basically, we want to allow landscape and snow removal companies to put any crew on any site at any time. So no matter who you send to a site. So if your truck breaks down and you have to send another crew to get the parking lot plowed, or somebody calls in sick and you have to put someone else on that route, how can you guarantee that all that tribal knowledge that was in someone's head is able to be translated to that next guy going there? Because everything's great until that time happens. Someone calls in sick and they're not there. And so Crew Vision is that visual operating system that lets them be able to put any crew anywhere. And so we're really selling them the flexibility, and that message is really resonating. People, it's actually funny. Like if we're picking up speed now that we're getting snow across North America, I guess, people have heard me talking about it for a while now, and they're like, hey, I really got to like check this out. Because, the first snowstorm was okay. But by the fifth snowstorm, they're already dealing with people that aren't showing up, or they're trying to train new people. And so people recognize that it's useful and extremely valuable to be able to put anybody on any site. And because of that, the companies do better, but also the field team does better. I believe in my heart, at the end of the day, people want to do a good job. At least 95% of your employees honestly want to go to work and feel like they're doing a good job. But too often, you hear business owners saying, I can't hire anybody good. So how do you reconcile that? I think it's that people just don't know how to win. They don't know how to do the job right. And
Right.
so Crew Vision helps you explain to your crews how to get the job done properly.
That's really cool. And so for those that are running maintenance companies or service-based companies like that, this platform does the knowledge base transfer for the individuals on that, but does it also do any of the billing, scheduling? Is it robust in the sense that it's almost one of these service platforms, or is it very niche on more of just the service ticket?
We're building an operations platform. We're not building a CRM, but as part of that, we are able to handle estimating, operations, and billing. And this
Okay,
is the area that we want to own. I want to own like managing your support email inbox or any CRMs have been built a million different ways. So we've built a product that we can integrate with these with a CRM, but you handle all your operational side of the business. So it's a true ERP in a sense that this is like how this is an operations platform. I always like to say people are like, oh, so you can make it like Uber or something. I'm like, well, no, we're more like the Uber driver. It's like, how do you actually get the work done?
right,
And a lot of trades businesses, they don't necessarily have a sales problem. They have an execution problem
correct.
because it is so labor intensive. There's a shortage of labor. Every labor hour has to be utilized properly in order to get the work done. And so we help you get the job done. And you can use another system. Like obviously you can get some insights and there's some, we help you prepare a quote, but we're not building like that whole contact management system and all that there.
Yeah, you'd want
So,
to integrate that in with like Mailchimp or whatever, constant
or like a
contact.
Zoho or something. Like
Yeah,
we use Zoho, and so we use Zoho to as a CRM to track like a deal as we're
yep.
closing it. But then once it's done, it gets handed off into the operational system.
And that makes complete sense. Why would you recreate the wheel when Zoho and I'm assuming most people would want to use a product like that than Salesforce because that's a giant. I
And we're
usually
not gonna
tell
be like
people,
QuickBooks. Like, you take your revenue out. You bill your stuff and then put it into QuickBooks.
yeah,
So
well, we
that's
do
the
the
end to
same
end.
thing. Yeah, yeah. We are our service platform that we use is a platform called ConnectWise. It does all the billing, it does all the contract management for the monthly reoccurring and the project based work and all that stuff. It's great, but it does not do the GNL. It just dumps it all into QuickBooks, and it has like a third party integration with merchant services like credit card and ETF and automatic deposits. So yeah, you don't want to create that because that's a whole different animal, and you actually want to work with the players that work with something like Zero, FreshBooks,
Yeah.
QuickBooks.
We want to be focused on solving one problem. Like too many people have tried to build all platforms,
Yeah.
and you're the classic saying, when you do everything, you're doing nothing, right? So let's try
Yeah,
and
yeah.
solve this problem.
Yeah, that's amazing because like I've seen the platforms like the Jiffies of the world where, it's like you're looking for a vendor, which is great, and then you can contract that person for the one time. But I find a lot of these contractors don't have a regular scheduling platform that they use. It almost like they rely on something like a Jiffy, just like an Uber type of thing. But it is it is a very common problem where I've even had a electrician that I was like trying to use, and he's like, "Oh, I've got the scheduling app, but it was convoluted, and even putting in what you're looking for, it was very
Yeah.
choppy." And so, yeah, I find that a lot of tradespeople are struggling with platforms, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for those that are building platforms, even like yours. You may be able to cross dimension that platform into other industries like construction even because hey, you know what, it's a job site, you're building a custom built home or you're doing some other sort of vertical that may make sense, and here you go, you've got
Cleaning.
a
Cleaning's one of our verticals that we want to go after eventually.
for sure.
Same problems in industry, lots of turnover, but customers don't care that your staff come and go. They want the job done properly.
Oh, I know, my office maintenance crew, I think I've had like 9 different people in 10 years because they just eventually fade out, right? They're
They
in,
need
they're
crew
out.
vision.
Well, maybe we'll have that conversation on that later on. So, Chris, talk to me. Final remarks. Want to say anything to the audience out there? Sort of last words of wisdom, as I always like to say. We get you in, and we may get you back sometime. But any sort of last words you want to kind of tell anybody out
um Wisdom, that's like something I always thought like 50-year-old men spoke about. I'm still kind of young.
there?
um
Let's take
yeah.
a page out of your book, man. You've got a lot
Yeah.
of success stories here, so take a page out of your book.
You know what? I think it's just classic entrepreneurial thing. It's like the best businesses are born out of necessity. You might be doing something today. Like I've been building a landscape snow removal company for years. But at a certain point, you start seeing a problem, and if you really just get one good idea, I think every 10 years. That's the maximum. I think maybe you're lucky if you get two, but honestly, you get one idea, one really good quality idea every 10 years.
Hmm.
And when you get that idea, and if you believe in it enough, you should really go after it. It took me a couple of years to decide if I don't want to be that classical entrepreneurial guy where you're starting like 50 companies. That's lame. Like focus. You want to have focus in life, and you want to achieve great things. But at a certain point, if something speaks loud enough to you, like go after it. Don't just like don't wonder what it would be like if you didn't do it. And so that that's why, and also I'm a young guy, so I guess that's maybe not always the best advice. And most of the advice that I'm giving is more to like my guys and like people my age and younger, where like you can still fail and stuff, and you're not gonna be destroyed the rest of your life. But I really think if you have a really good idea on something, like you have to go out and do it and prove it right or wrong.
I think that those are incredible words, and I don't agree with you when when you say your age and younger. Because if you take a look at
Yeah,
McDonald's and you take a look at Kentucky Fried Chicken, like both those guys were north of 50 years old when they became
exactly.
successful.
KFC, Colonel Sanders, you're right.
I think they were both of those guys were north of 50 at the time when they started, broke, and they just had a vision and they had a dream and they saw a problem and they figured it out. So
Yeah.
they're not the only ones. I think even Home Depot was started up. Also, both founders I think were older. So yeah, you know what? It's really at any age that you can buckle down, follow your dreams, but you really, if you have an opportunity to solve a problem, most people fail to execute. And I think you really said it well, in the sense that execution is the hardest part to basically become successful. And everybody thinks, because of social media and TikTok, I think everybody out there just thinks, I'm going to start this thing, I'm going to be driving a Lambo by next year, and I've got the mansion in 3 years. It doesn't work. You've been at it now, like you said, for 20 years. I've been at it for now 30 years. Success does not come overnight. There are some unicorns out there, but
No, it's a grind, man. It's, as you said, it's like, for you or me, it's like overnight success, like 20, 30 years in the making. And, really is a lot of that grind. You're working your way up. You don't just start out at this level because your thermometer is not set to that. It takes a while to get there. So
correct. Correct. Well, Chris, thank you very much for coming out today. It was a real pleasure having you. Thank you, everybody
absolutely.
who's listening to our podcast. Again, if you like, please like and subscribe. We're going to go crazy out there trying to bring out innovative speakers, thought leaders, entrepreneurs like Chris here, who is one of the best in Toronto. And he's only getting started. Like, this guy doesn't even, he's still getting started in his business. So thank you very much, Chris, for coming out. Happy holidays. Good luck with the snow season. And I'm sure we'll get you back in the spring, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the best. Take care. Thank you so much.
All right.